What's up, gamers? Once again, this is Jeremy, aka JB Huskers, bringing you another edition of Game Changers Fantasy Focus TV after a wild Week 3 where only 3 teams are left unbeaten. All 3 of those unbeaten teams are a surprise when you look at the Steelers without Big Ben. You look at the Chiefs and the Bears. I don't think anybody could have predicted that all 3 of those teams would start 3-0, but there they are. Right now on this edition, we're going to take a look at the top 5 fantasy performers of Week 3, and then we're going to look ahead at 5 waiver wire pickups that you'd want to look at for the upcoming week ahead. The top fantasy performance of the week comes by wide receiver Austin Collie of the Indianapolis Colts. He was the benefactor of an injured Pierre Garçon and the fact that Reggie Wayne was covered by Champ Bailey most of the game. Collie came down with an impressive 12 catches, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A lot of people in fantasy drafts took Collie as a third Indianapolis Colt wide receiver. Well, he definitely helped him out this week with a huge performance, giving him the top spot for Week 1. The second best fantasy performance in Week 3 comes out of the Baltimore Ravens, and finally Anquan Boldin has arrived. 8 catches, 142 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That could possibly erase the poor performance in Week 1 and 2 for fantasy owners. He had a huge game, so did Joe Flacco, as they both had struggled in those first 2 games of the season. But this performance for Anquan Boldin this week puts him at number 2 for the week. Hands down the most surprising performer in both fantasy and the NFL itself, Mike Vick of the Philadelphia Eagles. He once again tore it up with another impressive game against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 3. He ends up in the 3rd slot for fantasy performances of the week thanks to 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 291 yards passing. He also tacked on another 30 yards rushing. Mike Vick has definitely been the biggest surprise of 2010 so far. Our number 4 fantasy performer of the week is definitely no stranger to the top 5. Even though this is his first trip this year, he's made many trips in his career. That is Adrian Peterson of the Minnesota Vikings. Last week, Week 3, he had 160 yards on the ground, caught 5 balls for 30 yards, had a total of 2 touchdowns. He definitely had a huge game where Brett Favre is struggling for the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to rely on Peterson heavily until he gets that rapport with his wide receivers. The 5th best performance in Week 3 for fantasy football comes out of the New Orleans Saints. Lance Moore, wide receiver, had a huge game. 6 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I wonder if this will be the start of him recapturing his 2008 form where he had 79 catches, 10 touchdowns. And of course, 2009 was a very off year. He only played in 7 games and was a bust for many drafts. However, this big performance puts him at number 5 this week and possibly might get him going from the future. As we always do at this time, we're going to take a look at 5 players that could be available in the free agent pool, get on that waiver wire and see if they are there, especially with those bye weeks that are going to start here in Week 4. Definitely going to need some quality backups to get you through those bye weeks. We're going to first look at a guy that we just did talk about. Out of the New Orleans Saints, Lance Moore had that huge game against the Atlanta Falcons. Again, 149 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. He's only was taken in about 11% of the leagues on Yahoo and only 2.3% on ESPN. Nobody had taken him after that disastrous 2009 season. You may want to try to look right now, see if he's there, and grab him as quick as you can. Our next waiver wire pickup comes out of the Miami Dolphins, and it is quarterback Chad Henne. He is starting to come into his own in 2010, finding his groove in the NFL. Last week against the Jets, he threw for 363 yards and 2 touchdowns. And of course, when you have Brandon Marshall to throw to, you're definitely going to have a worthy target. Now, if you take a look at some of your quarterbacks having bye weeks possibly, Chad Henne may be out there to fill in for Week 4. Definitely grab him if he's out there. For the second straight week, we're going to have a Denver Bronco wide receiver in the waiver wire. Brandon Lloyd caught 6 balls for 169 yards and a touchdown last week against the Indianapolis Colts. Kyle Orton threw the ball everywhere, had 476 total passing yards. Now, there's a lot of targets in Denver with Brandon Lloyd, Jabbar Gaffney, Demaryius Thomas, who we had on the waiver wire last week, and Eddie Royal. But this is the second straight strong performance for Brandon Lloyd. and that could be a good thing going forward. If you take a look at the waiver wire, see if he's out there, definitely pick him up. As of the end of the week 3 here, he was available in over 70% of the leagues in Yahoo, and he was from the surprising 3-0 Kansas City Chiefs. Our next waiver wire pickup is quarterback Matt Castle. Last week against the San Francisco 49ers, he threw 3 touchdowns and had 250 yards passing. Definitely an efficient day for Matt Castle. He's starting to get comfortable there. Got a familiar face in Charlie Weiss as the offensive coordinator. Looks like he's buying into Todd Haley's system, and everything is clicking for the Kansas City Chiefs early on. If you need a backup quarterback once those bye weeks start creeping up, definitely look to see if Matt Castle is out there. Currently, he was only in 23% of Yahoo leagues and only 10% of ESPN leagues. Definitely someone to take a look at this point forward. Our final waiver wire pickup of the week comes out of the New York Jets tight end Dustin Keller. Now, you may think that he may not be out there, but in taking a look at all of the Yahoo leagues out there, he's available in a third of those leagues still, and he's available in half of the ESPN leagues as well. Good chance that maybe if somebody gave up on Sanchez after that poor first week, they may have also dropped Dustin Keller. So definitely take a look to see if he's out there. He's a huge game against the Miami Dolphins. 6 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is definitely Mark Sanchez's favorite target. If by chance he luckily is out there in the free agent pool of your league, grab him right away. And that'll do it for this week's edition of Game Changers Fantasy Focus TV. I'd like to thank you very much for taking a look at this video this week. Hopefully we're helping you out in your fantasy football leagues. If you need any more help and want to ask us a question, make sure you check out the EA forums under NFL Talk. There is a thread for Game Changers Fantasy Focus. You can also send us an email, gamechangersfantasyfocus@gmail.com. Make sure you check out the rest of the blog below as we give you our Madden Sim stats for Week 4. Some good and some ugly, and also we're going to take a look at the Game Changers Fantasy Football League and see how that is shaping up right now. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.